Yes. So can you please just tell me, like, how do you feel like you got into this line of work? Because it's a calling.
Listen, Amanda, nobody grows up like as a kid and says, when I grow up, I want to be a badly paid activist and work, 27-hour days, 9 days a week. That's just not a thing that people grow up with. I wanted to be a high school English teacher. I watched, this is so embarrassing when I think about it now, but I watched this movie called Dangerous Minds. It's with Michelle Pfeiffer.
Spending most our lives living in a gangster's paradise.
That. And I was like, I'm going to be a high school English teacher and I'm going to go back to my old high school and I'm going to inspire these young people of color and I'm going to have this great life. I'm going to get off at 3:00. I'm going to have the summers off. And I just had this whole dream. And so I watched this movie, Dangerous Minds, and I'm like, I'm going to be a high school English teacher. That's going to be my big dream. So
Michelle Pfeiffer really instilled in you, I got to go back and teach the babies.
That's literally, and I watched the babies in the movie and I was like, those are the types of kids that I grew up with. They're from my community. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And then I'm a college student and the horrific attacks of 9/11 happened in New York City. And that day was just the day that transformed my life forever. I walked home to my community because there was no public transportation. And just within the first couple of hours, first couple of days, I watched the whole transformation. I went from just being a regular, person from Brooklyn, New York. I lived in a diverse community. I never felt like an outsider. I never felt like I didn't belong. And then all of a sudden, the United States government descended on the communities that I was from. They raided coffee shops and businesses. Literally, men were being kidnapped from their homes in Brooklyn, New York. Like, this is Brooklyn. This is not like Afghanistan.
Right.
And because I spoke both English and Arabic when I was at the mosque, I found myself translating. Like, that was what I knew. That's the only skill I had. And then I started translating for women who were looking for their loved ones in this abyss of a system that just literally kidnapped their husbands off the face of the earth. And I've been here ever since, Amanda. I was like, yeah, this is not right. This shouldn't be happening. And I started volunteering as a translator. I visited detention centers across the Northeast. And I was like, this is outrageous. And then
what part of that was outrageous?
First of all, the conditions of these places that they kept these men. I mean, the minute I would walk into some of these immigration detention centers, whether the ones in Manhattan, whether it was in New Jersey, the conditions were horrific. Like, they smelled like urine. Like, when you walked in there, you saw people with children and the way it looked, it was chaotic. Immigration detention centers are different than prisons in general because these people don't have due process. Like, they don't even have, their rights have been stripped from them. And it just bothered me, like, as a young person. I was like, this is not right. And that's it. And it was like one of those things, like, you got in and I was like, well, wait a minute. If I don't fight for my people, who's going to fight for my people? And then somehow I just naturally stayed. And then finally I was like, wait a minute. It's not just my people. It's the Black people who also could be Muslim. It's also the undocumented people who also could be my people too. And I just started making connections in ways as a young person that grew up in Brooklyn that's like, wait a minute, we're all in this together. And that's kind of how I branched out as a immigrant rights activist, racial justice, working in the police kind of brutality or anti-police brutality space, and have been organizing ever since. It's been 22 years that I've been doing this work.
Okay, so I know that as somebody who is similar to you and where I feel like I can always spot, that's an injustice. That's an injustice. That I'm like, where's Waldo of injustice? Like, I feel like if I walk into a room, I can always point out, now see why they got her over there. That shouldn't be going on. Why they got that like that? How do you keep yourself from not overstretching yourself because you can't solve everything?
I haven't mastered that, Amanda. I'm the lady at the mall that sees a cop talking to a woman of color, and I will stand there. If it got to be 45 minutes, I will stand and watch the whole interaction happen to make sure that person walks away safely. I'm the lady that will be like, stop right here. We got to see. And my family's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I want to see this cop finish this little situation right here, like stopping people on the side of the highway. It's just something in me. I'm obsessive about it. I don't like to see people harmed. I don't like to be in a situation where I walk away saying I could have done something. I could have done something and I didn't do. And it's literally like, I actually wrote a whole book based on this concept. Like, I'm not here to be a bystander. Like, that's just not ever going to be me. And if you could call me drama, you could call me what you want, but I will never see a person in a situation that either being impacted by a harm or actually harmed directly and me being there physically and not doing anything about it. It's just never going to be me.
I am the same. People are like, you're going to die because of that. So be it. I wonder though, where did that come from? I don't know where that came from. Like, I genuinely, like, it's not like I feel like I grew up in an environment where I watched people not be bystanders. So I'm not really sure, like, I don't know if this came from like something I watched on TV or what. For you, do you have any idea where this idea of like, I just am not going to be a bystander came from? Was it developed? Was it always there?
I'm the oldest of 7 children.
Got
so
you.
when I was 10 years old, my mother already had all 7 of her kids. So imagine I was 10 and I had 6 siblings that were younger than me.
Wow.
And my mother, English was her second language. My father, English was his second language. I was the family social worker. I was the case manager. I was the one that was on the phone with the utility company. I was always like on the front lines. Like, and I didn't like to see people disrespect my parents because they didn't speak English. Like, I always stood up for my family. And then, my sisters was getting a little stuff. You know how the sisters are. They be always getting in stuff. And I'm the oldest. I got to step up. I got to go defend my sisters. 3:00. I'm there. I'm outside. And so I felt like it came from that. I think being the oldest of 7 children. And then also, that's where the Palestinian came in for me. My parents, I didn't grow up in a conservative Muslim family. I grew up actually more in a Palestinian nationalist family. Like my parents, for them, it was so important for them to know, for me to know that I was Palestinian and to learn about what it meant to be Palestinian, to go back to Palestine. When I was growing up, I went to Palestine many times because my parents wanted me to be connected to my culture. And I got to experience Palestine, not just as the place that my family was from. I got to experience oppression. Like I remember going to visit my uncle in a prison and being like, well, why is my uncle there? And someone having to explain to me, oh, well, your uncle was in a group of men, and then the IDF came and they detained them all. And then my uncle was in this, what they call arbitrary detention, where they just could make it up as they go along. People are not often charged with crimes. And it's like 6 months and then they do another 6 months. It's whatever they feel like it. And so even as a young child going to Palestine, I was like, this is not right. And then my mom had to sit me down and be like, let's explain what's going on here. Why are there soldiers here? Why is there an occupation? What happened? So I got to learn my lineage and my story. And then I was able to be the person in the US that invoked my Palestinianness. I was very clear that I was unapologetically Palestinian, which is what my parents taught us to be. They said, if anybody asks you where you're from, yes, you're born and raised in Brooklyn, but you are Palestinian. And I think that's part of it. That coupled with being the oldest child, that being coupled with being a child of immigrants, it just made me like, I'm always 10 toes down every time, everywhere, every place. You could always count on me in that space. And that's kind of how I'm known in the movement.
That is absolutely how you are known in the movement. 10 toes down. But I just wonder, like, when we are, okay, do you feel this way? Like, when you're a 10 toes down kind of person, it almost feels like you have to be perfect. Like, people expect that you don't make errors. Do you feel that type of pressure?
Oh, yeah. My whole 22 years of organizing, whether it be for my own community, look, I'm a woman. And I'm outside. I say what I say, when I want to say it, how I want to say it. I've been critiqued for my political ideology. I've been critiqued, as you know, as a Palestinian for the positions I take as a Palestinian who comes from a family that lived under a military occupation and continues to live under one. And so I think a lot of people that are like me are shattering a lot of the stereotypes that this country has kind of peddled for so long about Muslims, particularly Muslim women. And then here comes people like us, like, crashing it down everywhere we go, and they don't like that. And so when they don't like that, what they start to do is focus on what they believe are your flaws. Nobody's perfect. Of course, I'm not educated in every single issue. There are going to be times where we, might stumble here and there. But my track record speaks for itself. And that's what I tell people. I tell people I'm not judged just by my words. Judge me by my action. Judge me by the places I've been and the things that I have done.
Well, what we did post on the internet was a video asking for your questions. And so we're going to answer them over at the Amandaverse. So shout out to all of our Patreon subscribers, the SEAL Squad. We're going to come to you right now. How do you prioritize restoring yourself and continuing to fight for what you believe in? How do you deal with burnout?
I am a failure.
I was going to say, tell me, child, please.
I need you to answer the question for me because I need some help.